Ain't worried about no FOMO. Coin market cap out the crash on my lap when the bitch bounce back like a pogo. No fiat dough, I got Divi coin, I got Bitcoin, I got Ether. What y'all know about a pump and dump? John McAfee all on my tweeter. In the office with a 2-liter. By ATH, that must be a joke. Wife keep asking if we are broke. She don't know, I got a master no. Even my son told me about the dip. Ain't talking about what you put on potato chips. Even my son told me about
Hey everybody, welcome to our Two Satoshis. This is our first podcast for CryptoFizz.com. CryptoFizz is a website that me and my partner in crime, Billy, started this past year, in 2017. We're crypto enthusiasts. We watch the market, we trade, we have day jobs, but we wanted to add something to the community, so that's why we created CryptoFizz.com, where we currently write articles about various different coins, ICOs, upcoming events and catalysts, and some of the stuff you will see on our site you may not see on some of the big dog sites like Cointelegraph and some of the other ones out there. So we're open to everybody, and we write about pretty much everything that interests us. So we are kicking off our first podcast today called Our Two Satoshis. This is going to be our first one. You're going to hear some information from Billy and I talking about upcoming events in the cryptocurrency world, our current picks, any upcoming articles and other things happening with our podcast for CryptoFizz. And, you know, that's going to be pretty much the schedule every single week. But as I mentioned, we'll be including some guest hosts and guests along the way. So just a little bit about ourselves. I'll kick it off to Billy right here. Billy, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got interested in crypto, what your thoughts are on the crypto world, and what do you like?
Yeah. So, man, to start off, I can't believe we're already at this point. Like, I still remember this summer kind of pitching the idea of creating some kind of blog or website just to keep our thoughts in check and our investment ideas on paper.
Yeah, I remember that we were on a business trip for our real jobs, sitting at a bar somewhere trying to figure out names for our website, and then finally CryptoFizz popped up. So yeah, I totally get that.
Random list of names. Yeah, it's cool. It's been a long, strange trip. It's only been like 7 months. But yeah, so I guess just for some background, somebody asked me recently how I came across Bitcoin, and I couldn't remember. Like, I can't remember the first time that I came across it. I just know that it was in 2014, and it was around $900, and so I threw a couple $100 in there, and within like less than a month, it shot up to 12. I was on top of the world. I was crushing it, and almost immediately it plummeted down to like $100. I was like, well, missed the fucking boat. And just like gave up on it.
Welcome to crypto.
Yeah, I was like, damn. And that was the first crash. And kind of forgot about it. I know I talked to you, Justin, right around that same time, and you were actually getting into mining a little bit, right? Like Kitty Coin and Coin and all those guys.
Yeah. It's hard for me to track back, exactly what time frame, but it was around the 2013, 2014 time frame when I was getting into mining, GPU mining. So I had built my own machine with like 4 graphics cards latched together with zip ties in a milk crate that airflow would go through. And yeah, I was mining all various different coins, Kitty Coin, Doge. This is before Ethereum was even really thought of. It was mainly Bitcoin was the main one, and then you could mine, all these other coins. So that's what I was into at the time, and I did that for a little bit. Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you heard about Bitcoin?
I don't either. I know I was at work at the time because I immediately started researching, you can make money by letting your computer sit there and run all day. So I immediately started researching how to build a miner and how to run it. So, but I don't remember exactly what pushed me across that ledge or what I stumbled upon that got me that interested into it. That was only a few years ago.
I know. Yeah.
So So besides that, just outside of the crypto world, what's a little bit of your background, Billy?
Yeah, so funny story. So I actually got into trading specifically as a hobby. I kind of prefaced the founding of CryptoFizz was kind of a way to solidify our thought process when thinking about what coins to invest in. But that initial interest in trading actually predates crypto. At least for me, it was the actual stock market. And there's a whole long story that goes into that I'm not sure if you want to dive into on this episode. But long story short, I got into trading because of a former classmate of mine that had a Facebook status that said that one of his coworkers had made over 800K in one day on one trade and then retired that day. And I was like, oh shit, like that's what I want. I'm gonna learn how to do that. And that's gonna be how I do. That's how I'm gonna make my money that way.
Somebody else can do it. You can do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, if that's a real thing, I want to know how to do it. So, and that was right around 2009, 2010. I was in college, and basically from that point on, the past 8 years or so, I've been really trying to perfect just various investment strategies. Looking at chart patterns, looking at macro trends, paying attention to certain catalysts, like if there's going to be, checking out quarterly earnings for a given company, stuff like that. So I've kind of put in my 10,000 hours, so to speak, when it comes to investing into something, and for really getting a good grasp of when to jump in, when to get out, and really playing it safe. And it's been pretty successful. So I really look forward to sharing some of my knowledge.
Hey, I'll tell you, I'll never forget you getting into the stock market for the first time, because I'll remember the symbol till the day I die, GBSN.
Oh, yeah.
Great Basin Scientific. Yeah. So I invested in this stock that Billy pointed out, Great Basin Scientific, and they were supposed to be coming out, what was it, with like a patent or something for some like cancer research or drug or something, and it never passed through, and we ended up losing about 80% and or more in that coin.
Yeah.
I mean, I say coin, that was a stock, but yeah.
Yeah, that was it was one of those plays where I was like, man, this is a no-brainer. We're gonna get rich off of this thing.
Yeah.
And
the ultimate pump and dump.
Got swiftly kicked in the nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I personally lost. It must have been, I don't know, $10,000 or something, like something retarded. Like
the times you live and learn, though. It's just like
those losses,
Exactly. I mean, we've done that. That's happened with us in trading crypto as well. But we finally learned from there. The things that you do, the things you don't do. I'm not saying that we don't lose here and there, but you can definitely once you've been doing it for a bit, the warning signs to look out for and when to get out of something. So yeah, so it's all learning. It's all learning. I think you've said this to me before, Billy. If you got to spend a few bucks like that or a couple $1,000s, basically getting a degree in something by learning, what to do and what not to do, it's worth it in the long run. So
yeah, it's a cheap education. I mean, if you can learn how to do this shit, like I'm looking to retire this year. Like I'm 32 years old.
Exactly. Well, you say retire, but you mean we'll put full force into crypto fizz and crypto trading and stuff. Yeah, that would be very nice. Just to give you guys a little bit of a backstory on me, as we talked about there, I did mining around 2013. I got out of it for a little bit, and then within the last couple years, Billy and I have been talking about, trading crypto. And, I'm not saying anything against miners out there, but, if I can make a couple $1,000s off of one trade in one day, potentially, and pay for what I would have gotten in return for mining over the course of a couple weeks to a month, then that's the route that I'll go. And the reason being for that is that, Yeah, I remember when I did first start mining, I didn't work from home like I do now, and I had my mining computer up and running, and sometimes, things would happen and it would shut down, it needed to be rebooted, the mining software needed to be restarted, and I remember putting a remote desktop on that computer and being able to run it from work just so that I could restart it from work. But my point being with this is that I like trading a lot more now than mining because it's not like I have to monitor that hardware and software, making sure that it's up and running and that it has the latest, updates for the miner and whatnot. But so that's what that's a little bit about us. Obviously, you're going to learn more if you listen to more of our podcasts as we grow. But to kind of level set all of this, both Billy and I have been trading for the last couple of years in crypto, and we actually just did a review of this the other day for an article on our website. For the last 6 months of 2017, our picks in articles that we put on our site averaged about 433% together. So we've been doing pretty well with this. So that leads me into the next section here that we need to kind of discuss on this podcast, and it's what's been happening so far in January of 2018, and that is, as we like to call it, Coinageddon. So what is it? Since last month, Bitcoin's technically up since last month, but it's over the last couple weeks, it's down roughly 30 to 40%. So Billy, I don't know about you, but I haven't even looked at my blockfolio or my portfolio in the last 2 weeks because, as they say, hold. And I believe in all the picks that I have out there, but right now it kind of hurts to look at that. But I believe in the future, and I haven't taken a gander. I'm waiting for Bitcoin and for the others to move back up before I even open up that app.
Yeah, no, it's totally one of those scenarios where you kind of learn just to hold and just trust in your investments. It really behooves you to do your research and not just kind of randomly pick something and jump in trying to catch a quick wave. Like for me, like I know I'm bleeding red right now. I'm still up quite a bit for the year. I'm still very profitable, but short term, it's like, oh man, like it's not for the faint of heart, like at all. And and to be honest, I actually have looked just because I like to punish myself like that. But that's the way it goes,
Well, like I told you before, don't tell me what yours looks like right now because both you and I are pretty heavy in a few of the same coins and tokens. So, yeah. But we've looked at the trends, and from what we've seen out here of January, pretty much every year, and this is normal. There are different, there's different logic behind it for the reasons why. Maybe I'm in we're in a bubble here being in the U.S., but personally, one of my thoughts on it is that, people may wait till the beginning of the year to sell some of their cryptos and convert them to cash because that way they don't have to put it on taxes for the previous year. That's one thought in my mind. Of course, we've got other things going on out there like Korea threatening to, ban exchanges and do what they can to ban cryptocurrency. But what are your thoughts on the trend so far?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is cyclical. There are certain patterns that come and play in and play out as the year goes on. I think for the most part, there isn't really one excuse for anything happening. There's a lot of uncertainty. You kind of mentioned, South Korea, but it seems like every day some other country is coming out and they're talking about, some sort of regulation, this or that. This exchange got hacked. This thing's shutting down. This thing's a Ponzi scheme. So there's quite a bit to take into account. And if you're one of those people that, if you're not really convinced about what you're holding, if you're just buying it on a whim, chances are you're probably just going to sell out because you're scared, scared money. So,
well, and that's what I read an article about that the other day where they were talking about how they believe that this is actually a good thing for the market and that what's happening right now is that a lot of the newer people to crypto jumped in on speculation, and that they're selling out now because they're seeing a bit of a dip, and that's kind of what's causing the pullback. So yeah, I mean, there are those people out there that are afraid to hold, and who knows? In the end, maybe people that sell are the smart ones. But from what we've seen in all the previous trends of Bitcoin is that you can even point to stocks like Amazon. When Amazon went up to $1,000 and dropped back down to 100 or less, well, now it's back up over $1,000. So pullbacks like this are normal.
Refilling my glass here. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Bullet 95 rye. They can pay me later. Yeah, so it's kind of it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about how when I first bought into Bitcoin, it was right around $900, went up to 1,200 and crashed back down to 100. And now look at it. And that was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I thought for sure I had missed the boat, and now we're just like a rocket ship. So I mean, this is the way things go, But I think, grand scheme of things, I think we're still at the bottom. Like,
well, what was that? You were reviewing some charts the other day and reading some some big traders out there. What were they saying about what they see trends in the chart?
Yeah, so that's what I was looking at, and there's kind of two different things I want to share here. So I'm a really visual person. I went to school for graphic design. So for me, there's different ways to trade. And so for me, what I picked up on was chart patterns, because it is a very visual technique. So I use those quite often when I'm looking at, if I'm doing a day trade, or if I just want to waste time when I'm supposed to be working, I like to look at the charts and look for these patterns for confirmation. But what I saw the other day, though, so that the pattern is called a cup and handle. And so there are a few traders that were talking about how what they think might be happening with Bitcoin specifically is the beginning of this pattern. And so just to kind of visualize what this looks like, the first part of it is kind of like a spike, like Bitcoin just had recently, or for the past couple months. And then it goes into more like a bowl shape, like a very broad U. And then, and so it's going to top out once it connects that right-hand side line to make a U. That's basically going to line up with your previous all-time high. Then it's going to come down a little bit. Then it's going to sharply come back up and essentially skyrocket. So if you look at it, it almost looks like a coffee cup, where you have like the big U, and then you have a really small U on the right side of it. So basically what they were saying is that they're thinking that we're kind of like in the process of forming that U. So what's going to happen is, if that plays out, is we're going to see some further downside in a short term. So we might see probably 8,000, maybe even 6 if it gets bad. But then shortly after that, it's going to swoop right back up to finish that U shape, dip down a little bit, and then sharply move up.
So you're saying it'll move back up into like the $15,000 to $18,000 range, and then there'll be a short little dip after that again, and then that'll move the trend back upwards.
Yeah, I mean, it could hit 20 again. There's no exact science to this stuff. Chart patterns aren't always right, but they tend to be a decent indication from time to time of how things play out. And more times than not, in my experience, they do play out. But don't quote me on that. This isn't like I'm not a financial advisor or anything like that. But yeah, it's interesting.
Well, and we both know this, that you and I both like to trade. I mean, you are more into looking at charts at times, but what we really like is catalysts, upcoming events for coins and stuff, because that's when our tokens, because that's when we see, buy the news, sell the rumor, or sell the what is it? Sell the rumor, buy the news, sell the rumor, buy the news. Yeah, actually, I had it right there.
Yeah, buy the rumor, sell the news. Yep.
I had it right there. So buy the rumor, sell the news. So the problem with like something like Bitcoin, that's the main one that you compare everything against in Bitcoin that doesn't really have a company per se backing it is that there's not like a lot of there's not a great roadmap or a lot of upcoming catalysts or whatever for Bitcoin. However, the one big thing today that was announced was the first purchase on the Lightning Network for Bitcoin, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys remember, for anybody that's listening, kind of the first big moment for Bitcoin back in the day was some guy paid somebody else in like 10,000 Bitcoin to bring him like 2 pizzas. And so now those pizzas would be worth like $20,000. No, I mean, not $20,000.
It's like
10,000 times,
Yeah, I mean, it's like $100 million.
Yeah,
$150 million. Yeah.
Yeah, you can buy the pizza company for how much they pay for this stuff.
Exactly.
But yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on the technology, like the tech behind the Lightning Network. But what I do know is, for what I read today, somebody made a purchase using using that network on the actual main net. So it wasn't like a test transaction; it was like a real live, real node, real transaction. So it's really exciting. Sort of the pioneering moment for what should hopefully give Bitcoin a lot of much faster speed and cheaper transactions.
Well, I mean, cheaper transactions, that's the big thing. I mean, obviously speed is big, but the big thing there is the cheaper transactions, because I know just, from my own doing that, trying to send some Bitcoin to the exchange the other day from my Exodus wallet. I mean, I was sending a couple $1,000s in Bitcoin, and my fee at the time would have been like $100 or something. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, basically, unless you're transferring many thousands of dollars in Bitcoin, like, that's going to hurt. But
yeah, I mean, and those fees, I mean, personally, I think Bitcoin has to do this. They have to do this on the network, because I was honestly starting to believe there that, maybe Bitcoin can't be the currency that everybody talks about. Maybe, like everybody says, it is going to be the store of value that, and that's all it's going to be, is a store of value. And you look at something like, just using this as an example, I'm not saying that I'm picking this or anything, but Ripple as an example. I mean, Ripple can process the amount of transactions close to Visa, and the fees are just so small. Like, I was really starting to believe something like Ripple would become the actual currency that we use on a day-to-day basis. So, and not even talking about necessarily other coins per se, but just other forks. Like, all the forks of Bitcoin. Like, I'm not a big Bitcoin Cash guy or anything, but, if they can process transactions better than the regular Bitcoin network and cheaper than that network, then, there could be the possibility that one of those forks come out and they actually become the real Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? It's like nobody knows what's going to happen. I guess for me, I'm always going to hold some Bitcoin. It's that first love. It's the first mover advantage.
Yeah. I mean,
at the end of the game, like Bitcoin could one day have this, Lightning Network implemented, and suddenly it's a game changer. Suddenly it's competing once again with the rest, these altcoins that have gained traction while Bitcoin, has this bottleneck moment. I mean, who knows?
That's what I mean. I'll always hold Bitcoin as well, but I will tell you that I've changed personally, where when I trade now, I do it via the Ethereum pairings, because Ethereum is so much cheaper to transfer. It's so much faster to transfer. And I mean, I think this year's going to be a huge year for Ethereum as well, because I mean, they have the Ethereum Alliance that has over 70 corporations behind them. I mean, how can you go wrong with something like that? And that's going back to like the forks with Bitcoin. That's the other thing that, like, Ethereum, for instance, is they already have solutions in place for 10 to 15 years down the road when quantum computers come out, so that quantum computers can't break their privacy and be able to create, manufacture fake coins and stuff and break the network. Bitcoin doesn't have that. So it's like, 10 to 15 years is a little ways out right now, but the fact that Ethereum already has that, they are already planning for other things even farther out. Bitcoin, they need to get on with it on the network to where they're solving some of these issues that are going to come up to make them make Bitcoin viable for the long term.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it almost seems like Bitcoin's too decentralized. It's like we have these.
Oh, that's a faux pas there.
Yeah, no, yeah, I know, right? It's terrible to say, and we'll see how it plays out. But it's one of those things like there's pros and cons to each side, and I'm not in a particular camp. Yeah, I think it's too early to tell.
Yeah. I mean, that's been the pushback so far a little bit on Ripple, is the fact that Ripple is not fully decentralized. So, yeah, you've got people in different camps. I want something that, the government can't control, that nobody can really control per se, but something that does have some safeguards in place. And you just got to find that right balance there between it. So, going back to CryptoFizz, just wanted to kind of go over some of the stuff that we've been talking about lately on our website. It's funny, we've had a run lately of gambling, esports, betting coins. We wrote an article the other day about FunFair, which is one of our big picks right now. FunFair is basically trying to create a platform where a casino platform where people or companies can come and take their technology and actually get licensed and be their own casino online, and they use FunFair as that token. So, we've been pretty behind that. They have some upcoming catalysts, like they just applied this month for their UK remote software gambling license, so that way they can provide software out there, and then they're going to the ICE gaming event here at the beginning of February. So, if you're new to trading, you've been trading a while, this is a big thing that we like to do over here, is trade based on catalysts, and these are catalysts, big events that are upcoming, new things that are happening on the roadmap. And that's when Billy and I were just talking there about our portfolios. We're both pretty heavy in FunFair right now, so that's why I mentioned don't tell me what your portfolio looks like, because I don't want to know what mine does right now, so that we can get through this Coinageddon and start getting into some of these catalysts. But Billy, you wrote about the other day UniKoin Gold on our website, which is esports. Can you tell us what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think where I was going, because so we have this Facebook group, and I was headed somewhere where I couldn't invest. I don't know if I was on a plane or what.
You were going to the ballet. You were taking your girlfriend to the ballet.
Oh yeah, that's right. Going to the Nutcracker. Yeah. So I happened to notice that this coin had got launched on Bittrex that evening while we were headed there in the Uber. But I had seen it a couple months previous, mainly because it was backed by a few big names. So I came across it when I was looking at something else, but I happened to notice that it was backed by Ashton Kutcher, Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban, who just like a year ago said that he didn't believe in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, right? Now he's really getting into it.
Yeah, he was saying it was a bubble, and now he's backing these projects.
Yeah.
Which is fine. That's the way it goes. The more you understand, the more you realize this is like a big deal.
So what's UKG doing though? What is their goal?
Yeah, right. So basically, it's an ERC20 token, which is like the Ethereum standard. So Ethereum, basically made these standards for building a certain piece of software on the blockchain. So they've kind of given you like these.
It's on the Ethereum network, though, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's an ERC20 token on top of the Ethereum network. And essentially, in their words, they're looking to be like the universal token for esports. Now, they're actually owned by a parent company called UniKoin, which is already like a leader in the esports space. So they have quite a bit of an advantage from like a namesake standpoint. They have a big network already because of that.
Don't they already have a partnership with MGM?
Yeah. So trying to think what it is specifically. There's basically going to be like weekly tournaments where you can win, the UKG token on their platform from these various gaming tournaments, which is hosted and partnered with MGM. So we're going to start seeing a lot more public visibility into the esports and crypto combined space.
So the tournaments are like League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Dota,
Exactly.
Dota 2, stuff like that, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be, like the esports space is like rapidly growing. Like on a year-to-year growth rate, it's around 40%.
Yeah.
So by like 2020, we should be around $1.5 billion in market size.
And that's for esports. And then real quickly, going back to like FunFair that we were talking about, which is also a ERC20 token on the Ethereum network. FunFair is going after the casino market, which an online casino, the big thing with them is that, a lot of these online casinos, what they deal with is chargebacks on credit cards, people putting in credit cards and then saying, well, hey, I didn't pay for that or whatever, and getting their money back, or people fraudulently using other credit cards. Well, that won't happen with FunFair. And the FunFair market for the online casino market is about $50 billion. So that's a pretty huge market there for FunFair to tackle as well.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No. I'm waiting for my girlfriend to come in through the back door and create a bunch of noise.
Yeah.
Well, I anticipated hitting mute real quick.
So the other coin that we actually wrote about today, we did a Q&A with their founder, Richard Lehane. I believe I'm saying his last name right, hopefully. And that's for another gambling token called My Odds. That's ODDZ.bet. Basically, they're doing similar to what FunFair is doing. They're building like a casino network. You can also do peer-to-peer gambling. You can do poker and various things. And they have a token. It's odds, ODDZ, but that token is not really used for the gambling. So you're still going to use Ethereum to gamble on their network, but the odds token basically gives you profit share into their network. They're also going to be doing something pretty cool where they monthly they give away a percentage of what's the profits that have made on the network to charity. So that's really awesome. So they're bringing the charity aspect into it as well. They're going to be giving some away to My Ether wallet, and then some based on voting for people that are token holders. They can vote on which charity the rest are going to go to. So that's pretty cool. I definitely suggest you checking that out at myodds.bet. And we plan on having their founder and CEO, Richard, on to one of our podcasts here in the next couple weeks. Their ICO is opening February 12th. So we're going to have them on right around the time of the ICO opening to discuss a little bit about the coin.
Yeah, just to kind of cut in real quick, something that caught my eye when I was checking out their stuff. They're actually going to be bringing in like a world-renowned like audio expert that worked on FIFA 99, Need for Speed, Wipeout, all those big titles. So that's pretty cool. They're going to bring in like a big dog to work on their, the platform audio.
Yeah, it's funny. You look at a lot of these cryptos that are out there, and when they're launching and stuff, and you look at some of the big names, having to do with them. Like, we've got the audio expert there from, some of these big games on My Odds. You've got Mark Cuban, Ashton Kutcher going into UKG. Jez Sand from FunFair he had a Atari gaming company back when he was a teenager, and helped create Star Glider and like the microchip for Star Fox and stuff. So definitely some big names out there in this market.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and it's still so new. I mean, Bitcoin came out in 2009, and we've just scratched the surface, which is crazy to think about. But market saturation is at like 2%. in the U.S. Like that's not even global. So it's what a time to be alive.
What was that you were telling me? You recently went to like Thanksgiving dinner or something, and how'd that go?
Oh yeah. So so I went to a couple of different places for Christmas. I went
Christmas.
actually no, well it was both. It was Thanksgiving, but then it was also Christmas. But it was the same scenario both times. So Thanksgiving, I went to my dad's side of the family, and so I walk in the front door, and this is my dad's side's pretty big. There's 25, 30 people typically at these gatherings, and so my great uncle, who owns a CPA firm, agency, whatever you want to call it, he isn't into tech at all. He's super conservative, just doesn't, he's very old school. So I walk in the front door, and must have been 3 or 4 seconds tops. He looks at me and says, "The hell's a Bitcoin?" I'm like, that's when I knew. I was like, okay.
Hold on. I thought he said to you, didn't he say to you something along the lines of, what is a Fitbit?
Oh no. So that was Christmas, and that was my grandmother. That was my grandfather's girlfriend. She's British, and so I walk into the kitchen. Same scenario though. Like I had been in the house for like 3 seconds. I had just taken my coat off, walked into the kitchen to start saying hey to everybody, and she was like, nah, I'm not going to do the accent justice. I'm not even going to try, but in her British voice, and she's probably 65 years old, she looks at me and says, "What the hell's a Fitbit?" And I'm like, you mean Bitcoin? She's like, yeah, Bitcoin. It's like $20,000. So I was like, you know what, man, we've gone mainstream.
Yeah, that's awesome.
These people don't even use the internet.
That's awesome. Oh, well, yeah, it's going mainstream. It's going mainstream. I mean, we've crossed that mainstream moment. We now have a group in Facebook with, 20 or 30 just of our friends that are asking about it, and on daily, have these daily chats and stuff. So, yeah, everybody's interested now. We still got a lot of haters out there, but hey, that's gonna come. Yeah, that's normal. If you're not getting hated on, you're not doing something right?
Hey, before we cut this off, I was looking at a project today, and so I bring it up just because you mentioned the Facebook group, and somebody brought it up. I can't remember who it was, but they said, "Hey, have you checked out VeChain, VE Chain, and the ticker is VEN?"
Vin, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, at the time I was like, this is probably about a month ago. I was like, nah, I haven't checked into it and totally forgot about it. Well, I looked at it today. Since that time, since that person mentioned it in our group, it's gone up 1,000%.
That's
Mother
crazy.
trucker.
Yeah. So what is the logic behind it? Like, what is VeChain?
So to be honest, I gave it a quick look today. I didn't do a thorough analysis, but from what I gathered, so it's a Chinese blockchain. They're based out of Singapore. But basically, it looks like they have a couple of big partnerships. That's what's really driving this price. PricewaterhouseCoopers is like one of the big names. So I know that they're looking at providing this, this sort of enterprise service to very large companies.
Well, here. If you guys are listening to this, check out VeChain right now. Do some research on it. On our next podcast, we'll actually dive deeper into VeChain and talk a little bit about that once we've had time to really analyze it and stuff. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on. I remember somebody commenting about that today, saying that it might be the right time to sell, but they were offloading a little bit of it. But yeah, can't really give it advice on that until we do a little bit more research, but it's interesting to look into. So, kind of just closing this segment down real quick, guys, and ladies, if you're out there listening to us. So, as I mentioned, we've recently written articles about FunFair, UKG, and My Odds. So we're going to kind of continue that trend over the next week or so on CryptoFizz, and we are going to write an article about Wager and another article about Edgeless. so that way we can cover a lot of the people in the gambling betting market for cryptocurrency. So definitely check those out here in the next week or so. And next week we'll be having a new podcast where, as we just mentioned, we will be going over our analysis of VeChain, and we will be looking at other trends of what's going on in the market. Hopefully we've seen an uptick in Bitcoin by then. And we should be having a guest on our next podcast. So keep an eye out for that. And then once we get these podcasts rolling, we are going to start having a special podcast weekly for special subscribers, where we really dive into some of our picks, why we're picking them, and what our upcoming picks are going to be based on catalysts. So, yeah, I think that'll be our podcast for today. Billy, you want to kind of close it out?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody if you're out there. It might just be one person, or it might just be the cats here in my room, but if you're out there, thank you. We're really excited for these podcast sessions. And if you have any suggestions, any comments, we should have a comment section below, or go on Twitter, Facebook, hit us up. If you're looking for anything particular, we'll try and accommodate. But yeah, I don't really have too much to add besides that.
Awesome. Well, I think that we'll thank you guys for listening, and we'll spice these up a little bit more in the future. And I'm just going to let CoinBros on YouTube take it away on our podcast. Later, guys.
Legend gang, buy the dips, get the gangs. Y'all complain, but you dumb motherfuckers should do the same. Crypto, stacking up, private keys, I back them up. MacBook, fast as fuck, lock the door, the girl's acting up. I buy the dip when I'm sleeping, I buy the dip when I'm jogging, I buy the dip when I'm buying dip, I buy the dip in my coffin. That's CoinBros on YouTube, buy the rumors, sell the news. For this crypto, I'm selling shoes on Craigslist, I got shit to move. I buy the dip, dipping, I buy the dip, dipping, I buy the dip, dipping, I buy the motherfucking dip. BTFD gon' buy the dip, BTFD gon' buy the dip, BTFD gon' buy the dip, BTFD gon' buy the dip. I buy the dip, dipping, I buy the dip, dipping, I buy the dip, dipping, I buy the motherfucking dip. BTFD gon' buy the dip, BTFD gon' buy the dip, BTFD gon' buy the dip, BTFD gon' buy the dip. Buy the dip, dipping, dipping, dipping. BTFD gon' buy the dip, BTFD gon' buy the dip, BTFD gon' buy the dip, BTFD gon' buy the dip.